Live and learn. Yuliya and Ina with you here. Today we continue the conversation and invite you to join the discussion at facebook.com/Live and Learn podcast. Midsummer!
Midsummer Nights. A little bit of Shakespeare upon your head.
Sounds wonderful. Made me think of Much Ado About Nothing. When we say midsummer nights, Much Ado About Nothing, you had some wonderful associations with this. Could you share them, please?
Yeah, the word midsummer comes directly into my mind with the analogy of Midsummer Nights by Shakespeare. And the second thing from Shakespeare that my associations go for is the British theatre and cinema. And the last year that was the Shakespearean year when we were granted with a privilege to see the plays that were recorded from live theater plays to be recorded live. That was an amazing learning for me and enjoying the learning for me. So not only, of course, they were Shakespearean, but because quite a number of those plays were by this gigantic author. I think that's how the midsummer comes with Midsummer Nights with Shakespeare, with the theater and cinema things. Yes, for me this is a very direct association.
I don't have such associations with Shakespeare. I've rather got that memory of trying to get through the lines when we were back at university, trying to read this English. And still, I value so much the opportunity to see the plays put on stage, especially plays by Shakespeare that were written especially to be put on stage. They were not written to be read. They were written to be staged and to be watched by the audience. And so this is something, this must be something special. I haven't experienced that, but I just envy you for having had this wonderful experience. And then I've always wanted to come closer to the cultural life wherever I live. But I've been waiting so long to go and see the first performance in Italy, understanding some of the language. Then I was choosing where to go, what to watch. When I finally chose what to watch, it was such a boring performance, I can't express it. So now it's not about understanding the language, it's about being involved into the performance, actually in the show. If you can follow the flow of the performance, then you can enjoy it potentially, probably. This is now, I believe, not about understanding the language, so you shouldn't be ready to the moment of going to the theater. Just go whenever you can and enjoy the performance.
Your experience reminded me of mine in Milano when I went to the Contemporary Art Museum, and everything was, of course, only in Italian, and that was my first or second time, maybe third time in Italy, when I already had my A1 level, and I think I was heading to the A2 level the next year. And I came there, and my visit coincided with the special tour for the kids, and I couldn't but watch what and how the art is highlighted when the art is presented to the kids, how they collaborate with one with another to find out the main features of this and that picture, how they try to analyze, try to see the colors, to see the forms, to see the mood, to reflect how they feel about this picture contrary to the one that is opposite to it. And I actually, this museum has two different modes for the audio guide for the adults and for the kids. And meanwhile, they were doing some kind of the activities and putting the colors into their notebooks and trying to recreate the colors of the picture or create another colors for the same picture lines. I was trying to listen in Italian what is the how the art is presented to the kids. And I was amazed, but not only that I could understand with my barely B2, something like that level, that I could understand the notions, the concepts, what am I supposed to do, the instructions. Of course, there are some kind of the words which like impressionism or realism or something like that I would know because I'm an adult person, but in regards to how we are ready to perceive the culture and the environment with minimum linguistic abilities in this particular language amazed me most probably at that place the most. I was struck by how much I can understand, but as well how much I can understand about art being talked as a kid, right? Like being expressed by the guide. For me, that was one of the most interesting experiences, both as a language learner and the art appreciation perspective, which I never expected.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, especially when you think in terms of understanding art and understanding the language at the same time. When kids first go to the theater, are they supposed to understand much of what's going on? Probably not. But they're taken to the theater when they're young just to be part of this art environment, to participate, to perceive something that is staged, to just go out together with their parents. And so, step by step, kids are taken to the theater, and step by step, they start to understand more and more. And I will be banal here, but it's the same as learning the language. So we start getting some language input without understanding much of it in the beginning. But then as we are part of a speaking community, we step by step learn to understand something. We guess some of the things, but anyway, we are part of what's going on. We are part of this speaking or language or art or whatever environment we're put in. Thinking about communication as art here is another point, and also communication as art, learning a language as art of mastering something new, another way of expression, like theater and language.
Talking about museums, one more thing that I find really interesting for the language learning is going to international museums and seeing the same text being written into different languages. So, for example, the language you might know already and the language you are learning because you are being in this environment. Or, for example, not necessarily only to the museums, you can go to the internet and see the same page written in English, for example, and French, Italian, or any other second language.
At the same time, going to a museum and also looking around helped me, for instance, to learn a word in German which means touch. On the traffic lights, you have this yellow thing that you need to touch in order to let it change to green. And there you can see the word berühren or bitte berühren. It's a weird word to me, but I understand I need to touch this thing. Logical. Then at a museum, all the exhibits have this note, don't touch, written in English, and nicht berühren in German. So then these two things come together and like click. Aha, okay, now I know exactly what this word means.
A miracle of learning. Transferable skills, I would even say. To come back to my initial thought that when we're learning a new language, it's always interesting to read everything around, but again, it might be very, very confusing. And therefore, in these museums, I normally find like a magic stick when I understand that this is the very same text. So I'm on the safe side because there were the people who are the professionals and they've already checked if this is the same words. So I can see that the structure is most probably the different, but then you can see some everyday words that you wouldn't be normally reading. Like, for example, when you have a still life picture and then it's just the enumeration, what is there. And then you say, oh, this is how you call leather. So that would be in German leather. Kind of obvious, but I didn't think of it. Because like when it is the leather, I mean like the piece of the old still life, right, on the picture, then you understand that it's not the same skin, which is in German is Haut, if I'm not mistaken. But then when you come to the supermarket and you see salmon, like lacks meat Haut, then you say, okay, so is it with skin or not with skin? So this is the scales, like for the English word, or actually the skin, and then all this word bombard you from very different contexts, and then you make it work together that leather is leather, which is the same skin on the picture, right? A piece of the animal skin, and then you have the idea what is the cover basically, right, for the hout. It becomes such a discovery, and then you have this wow moment and the little moment of philology, moment of linguistics that we really love sharing about. What was your very recent linguistic wow moment, you might?
Yeah, that struck me was, for example, a moment on a train when there was no internet connection. I couldn't read anything, if not something written on some posters on a train. And guess what all the posters nowadays are about? How to protect yourself and others against the coronavirus. And so there was an announcement saying what to do in order to, and then a mystery word like einzudämmen. Well, I now understand that even if I had internet connection and could look the word up, it wouldn't help me because German words are kind of weird. So this zu in the middle of the word is the English to, which means it's an infinitive. Okay, so eindämmen. Good. I continue thinking and I'm trying to kind of crack this word. So ein is a prefix. Let's put it away. Just trying to understand what the key component here is. And then I come to the conclusion that, okay, this dämmen is the same as English tame and Italian domare. And then everything becomes clear. So this de in the German word, which obviously comes from Latin and is still in an Italian word, de, but then the vowel is not the same of the Italian language, but the same of the English language. And so as if by miracle, I understand that, okay, this means let's do this in order to tame the spread of the virus. And then it works because I understand the context, and it's also important because without the context, without knowing what it's all about, I would never have got there. But knowing the context, knowing other languages helps. And then again, there's this magic click that says to you, okay, you've got it. Like,
the aha moment.
The aha moment, exactly.
Actually, what you said made me think that in Ukrainian it is zatamuvati.
Really?
Exactly, tame, tamuvati.
Okay, wonderful.
So you have
Really
the
wonderful.
very same thing, like the bigger scope of the languages you know. Then you can have those comparative tables. When we had one of the most beautiful subjects was the comparative grammar of Slavic languages and Proto-Slavic languages, of course, like Indo-European ones, and the English and Proto-English ones. So basically, and most obviously that we learned Latin, French, and it was clear that we are trying to find the old Latin word, old English word, and old Slavic word, and try to see how it all goes and where does it come from and what are the changes are on the way, like how the people spread around the globe and come to this point to form the stem, or change of the stem, or change of the vowel, or maybe change of the syllables or consonants. Yeah. So, for example, funny thing that in Ukraine, in Kiev, we have two major streets which are called Upper Wall and Lower Wall. In Ukrainian, the word is val, and the understanding that to do something valit, right? This is the idea that you push something down. In the understanding of the wall, in English, in my understanding, this is to push something to make it higher. And then, can you imagine my wow moment when I go in Berlin and see the street Oberwall and Niederwall, which are the very same ideas, like the lower and the higher wall, but then we have the idea of the word valley. Can you imagine that this is like something in between? Because between the higher wall and lower wall, there is a valley. Yeah, it helps to understand why one was the lower and the other was the higher one, and to remember what is the lower and what is the higher. Sometimes it's just so impressive how we can learn from like from the history, from museums, even on the...
From reading from walls, from reading the posters, from reading anything around. And do you remember we went out and spoke in particular about that old film by Steven Spielberg, I believe, The Terminal, when the character of Tom Hanks got stuck at the airport. And actually, this is the way he was learning English in the International Airport of New York, reading the travel brochures, the things around anything and everything that caught his eye. And in the end, he was pretty convenient, I would say. And he wasn't fluent, but he was okay with the level of English he needed to communicate with the people around and to have even some important talks with other characters and to solve his problems. So this is a very efficient way to learn the language, and we can learn from movies too. To get some tips, you don't have to go and search 5 top tips to learn the language. I'll watch a film, see how other people do it in a movie, and think if it's okay for you. This is something I always ask myself, is this something I can use? Is this something that is okay for me? Or maybe not, because there are tons of different approaches, ways, tips that could work for someone, but wouldn't work for me personally, or wouldn't work for someone else.
Well, one of the tips that whenever somebody asks me for a tip, I normally say create your own set of tips which work for you, because we all have very different learning techniques, learning experience, and learning goals, to say the minimum, to say the least. So somebody is going always for the new, higher, and so on, but there are some people who want really to feel comfortable with what they already have, to have the solid foundation, so solid ground, to be able to use the vocabulary they already have in more contexts, rather than always new vocabulary and then not building the communication skill around. Trying to get your own top 5, top 10 tips out of top million tips that exist in the internet would always be a very good one. However, my idea was to second what you just said by trying to see how you can use it. How can you get and transfer this knowledge to another context, as well as trying to get the phrase that you liked, or that caught your attention from the context you know, and try to see where else you can get, but as well praise yourself for this, because there is so much push for, oh, how much I don't understand in the page, or how much I don't understand from a video, or from a song, or from a podcast. Try to say, oh, I understood that and I'm doing fine, because now I can use it in different contexts. So that would be the best tip that I'm sure you would agree on.
I do agree, and this is something, well, I don't praise myself, but I feel happy when I understand at least one word or a phrase in a big bureaucratic text, for example. Then I think, well, okay, later I'll go through the lines again. Maybe I will understand more. But the more I have this experience of reading some pretty weird texts, the more I get to the idea that you should just be happy to have understood at least something, which can be this small block to build something bigger in understanding. And it works more or less with all the languages that I've learned or have been learning. Just
That's why we
is this
don't have the podcast called Live and Learn English, because it doesn't really matter which language you're learning, or there is no point in calling it Live and Learn Language, because it doesn't matter that this is a language. Well, it does, but to some point. But Live and Learn is much more fundamental approach, and then where can you apply this approach to? I think we were discussing it in our Learn and Vacation podcast, that we always need to take a look how much do you understand from a book that you're taking with you on a holiday. So my advice was to open on any page and take a look on one paragraph, how much in percentage do you understand? And if this is more than 65, 75, 85, grab the book if it is of your interest. The very same thing would be about the podcast, as we said. But my idea today is add up on these two ideas. When you understand most of the text, and when you're trying to bring it to another context, that would be the best learning solution. And praise yourself that you can do this, and that I meant praised as a opposite to shame yourself, because there are so many people who keep on shaming, oh, I didn't get those 2 words on the whole page. Why do you even concentrate on those 2 words? There is no point in doing this at all.
I'm just thinking, if a baby stopped learning a language just because they don't understand everything that adults are talking about around on the first day, after birth, like, what is it all about? Again, to quote Shakespeare one more time, what's the buzz about? What too much ado about nothing? What is going on there? No, stop. I'm bad. I can't do it. And imagine we would stop at that moment of not understanding. But somehow, when we are babies and then toddlers and then young children, we learn, we live and learn, we live and learn, and we live and learn. In the end, everyone with no specific conditions can learn the native language. And the same should, scientists say and prove, work with foreign languages, with second languages as well, because we've all got this language acquisition device that works pre-installed in all humans. And then when we shame ourselves for not understanding a word or for not knowing how something works in a language, do we somehow underestimate what is pre-installed in our brains? Why would we do that? Why wouldn't we just trust that we've got this device pre-installed and use it? Would be so much simpler.
Just like the application to listen to podcasts. I was amazed by your story that one of the podcasters was betting around, saying, I can bet that you have the podcast listening application pre-installed in your handy.
In your smartphone. In your smartphone. Okay, and
in your smartphone.
And now this episode is brought to you by the German language, which stole the word handy from English. They take an adjective, they literally steal it, they start writing it with the
capital letter,
capital H, and surprise, it's a noun. And now you need to guess whether it's masculine, feminine, or neutral. Da-dum, da-da-dum.
Cool.
So, being brought to you by the German language, this episode continues to say that person who was actually betting with people on having at least one app for listening to podcasts is actually Lika Kramer, who is co-owner of a podcasting agency. So she knows what she's talking about. And well, guys, seriously, don't you know where to listen to podcasts? Do you think you don't have an app? You do.
Already pre-installed.
Yeah. And so it's the same with learning and mastering a language. And we've got this language acquisition device pre-installed in your brain as a human. So just enjoy, live, and learn. May I share a wonderful experience I had in a German lesson today?
Please do.
As it's midsummer, everyone's tired. It's a German B2 language course für Beruf, as I said, I think, in one of the previous episodes. It's professional German. All the vocabulary is turning around professional issues. Guess what? All the professions that are mentioned in the book are probably not related to anything you're going to do professionally. So it's a strange course. Anyway, teachers are tired as well, and they understand that it's not doable in the middle of the summer. Well, so midsummer, everyone's tired. The teacher comes in with a printed copy of an exercise and says, okay, we're going to do something relaxing now. Just read the task carefully. You've got 3 minutes to do the task. Relax, be quiet, read the task, do it, 3 minutes, then we'll check. There is a list of questions, like general knowledge, and the task itself is called like intelligence test or something. And you start answering the questions that are kind of who composed Aida, who wrote War and Peace, when was Charles the Great born, whatever. 12 questions. Question 13, go up, write the date on the left on top, like why? And then you finally read the task. And have 2 more minutes to relax. Like, why do you have 2 minutes to relax? And now you read the task, and the task says, read all the questions. Go through all the questions before you start answering them. So if someone had ever read the task before doing it, they would really have had these 2 extra minutes to relax. Because as you go through all the questions, question 13, which is the last one, says, now go up, write the date, and relax for 2 more minutes. Hello. So I start laughing when I go to the end of it. And then the teacher says, okay, now you've got the point. And then as people finish answering all the questions, start reading the last one and start laughing. So the teacher knows, okay, now this person has finished the task, because it's a good sign that you finally read it. We had a laugh. And then the question is, how many students ever read the task before starting to do it? None.
In any language.
In any language, absolutely.
It doesn't matter
With
which
any
language
teacher.
you're learning. I think we need to now to give the task to our learners and our fellow teachers. Summer now, relax.
Yeah, right. Relax, live, learn, enjoy. Just be, live and learn. Curious about what we discuss next? Join us at facebook.com/Live and Learn podcast.